David Odell here, and today we're starting a new job, and we're in North Tustin, California today, and this is what we're going to be doing. Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. This is our first day on this job site. It's kind of a two-parter because we have the driveway, which is going to be a stamped concrete with a different type of border, cobblestone in texture. But right here, we're going to do rock salt finish to match the existing. We're going to do white flash split bricks around the perimeter. And we're going to put a channel drain in across the front of this house to capture any water runoff from the roof or from the hillside behind us. Because everything on this hill drains towards the house. They've already waterproofed the foundation. They put a burrito wrap pipe down below along the front of the house to capture any groundwater and run it out into the street. That's already in place when I got here. All I have to do is tie into that existing drain with the new channel drain. The thing about these bricks, they are white flash, but they were white flashed, 30, 40 years ago. So a lot of the white's worn off. And that happens a lot when they're on the ground. If they're on a vertical surface, they don't get the wear and tear, so the white will last a lot longer. But when they're down here, the white comes off quick. So we're still going to go with the white flash. And you can remove that white a little quicker if you want to with some muriatic acid. Here's the white on the horizontal or vertical surface. And it's still on there pretty good. But you can see on the ground there's not much left. And all the things that I'm talking about here is things that I've already explained and talked with the homeowners about, these different things that happen when you're trying to match existing. The homeowners were really involved in this entire project. They were out with us pretty much almost the whole time of the entire process. And every evening after we went home, there was normally some kind of an adjustment we had to do on the next day. Right, I'm gonna put the diamond blade on here because I want to start cutting that brick down below. Get it so I don't damage extra brick. Here's a DeWalt 9-inch. I'm just cutting that existing band, and then I'll tie it back into the new pour because this new entry is going to be bigger and more straight with those stairs coming down. All this concrete removing here, because we're down in this gully, we're going to wheel it up and around and place it on the driveway that we'll be removing. And we have a skid steer coming for that. So I'm stockpiling all this stuff up there in the upper area of the driveway. The driveway area is going to be coming out because a massive tree, they had a big old pine tree that, pines have a lot of surface roots. They do a lot of damage in the surrounding area. So that's why that was coming out. As you can see here, there was a brick ribbon along the front of these landings. This bottom landing had a ribbon. The rest of the landings didn't have one, so we just removed it. We removed that brick ribbon from the bottom landing, and we won't be putting that one back. That way all those landings kind of look uniform and planned. So we broke off the extra. It was about 2 inches of concrete at the bottom of that landing. Saw cut it back so we could bring a new concrete right up against it. This is just the native ground that we're working with here. We're just going to use what we've got here. There was a few roots that we had to remove. A couple of sprinklers, as you can see there, that we're going to move to the side so we can get them out from underneath the brick ribbon on the perimeter. Because we're using split bricks, which is half the thickness of a regular brick, we're going to create a concrete shelf monolithically poured with the patio, and the rebar will go underneath the brick as well, tying it all together. So if there isn't ever any movement in this thing, the brick will move as one with the concrete patio, so you shouldn't get a separation on your grout joints. That's the whole idea behind that method. And you'll see what I'm talking about as we form this up and the process you have to go through to do that. Here's the downspout adapter. That was existing, but I had to move it over to get my ribbon to line up with the outside corner of house. I didn't want to incorporate that downspout adapter into the brick ribbon. Wanted to kind of be clear of that for future maintenance on it, possibly, of the drain. So here's my brother Doug. He's setting up that little 2x2. He's 9 inches in off of the existing concrete. That allows for your 8-inch brick, 1/2-inch mortar both sides. And that 2 inches gives you enough depth to get your splits with about a 1/2 inch of mortar bed on top of your concrete pour. Now I'm digging deeper along the front edge of that house. I went down a little deeper because with this channel drain, it's a 3-inch wide removable grate. What I do whenever I'm putting a grate or a channel drain in, I like to go deep and then hang these, float them, so the concrete completely encapsulates the channel drain, goes all the way underneath and up the sides. That way, if it does crack or there is any movement in the 2 separate slabs after it cracks along that channel drain, it won't crush it. Because a lot of times if you start getting movement and you don't have the concrete going underneath it, it could actually crush your channel. Those grates won't work anymore.
Put it all the way.
And that takes a long time for all those things to happen, but it happens eventually. So that's why you put concrete all the way around them. On the channel drain, it's a 2-inch coming out of the bottom of the far end because we have a slight slope in that direction. It goes from 2-inch, and then we did an adapter to 3-inch to fit that existing drain pipe. We kind of simplified the brick down here, just cleaned it up a little bit, made a nice big entry. We just brick lined it to kind of tie in the existing, and then just all concrete through the middle. Right now I'm putting some stainless steel screws into that channel drain. I put the lid in there, that way when I pour the concrete against it, I know that it's the right width. So if you don't pour it with that lid in there, your plastic may get messed up, and then your lid doesn't fit. So I keep the lid in there during the pour. And then what I'll do before we pour, I'll tape that whole lid up with some blue tape. And that way it'll keep it clean and it'll keep concrete from getting in there. The way I suspended that channel drain in the air there so the concrete could go under, I just put 2 steel stakes, 1 on each side, and I pinched it with some tie wire on top, and that just pinched it together and held it in place. And because the grate's in there, I'm not really crushing the channel. So that's another reason you want to keep the grate in there. So when you pinch them like this, you're not crushing the channel. You don't really want to screw into it to support it, so pinching it seems to work pretty good. So this is the tie-in on the drain right now. And with that drain, what I did, I'm using some primer and some blue glue on all the fittings. And, because we're working on all this pipe and we have all these fittings, I'm just going to encase all these fittings in concrete. In other words, I'm not going to backfill dirt around them. I'm just going to encase them in concrete. That way they can never move. So that's pretty much sums up a channel drain install. That's going to capture your roof runoff and any surface drainage. The grate will protect it from debris buildup, but they are removable for easy cleaning. There was, you see that white pipe down there? That's actually being utilized for a conduit, electrical conduit. And it was cracked, so we kind of put another pipe, a bigger pipe around it where it was cracked, just to prevent water, dirt from getting in there in case they wanted to pull wire through there again. So this is number 3 rebar, and Francisco is holding the rebar up off the ground as we pour. And since I have them on 2-foot centers, it's easy to you know, step around the rebar so you don't push it back down. We have about 1.5% slope out of that doorway to the channel. And then we have another probably 1% cross slope on the channel. So everything is going from left to right and towards us to the channel. From these steps towards the channel, we have a minimal slope. Some of the water never reaches the channel from this end. It ends up running off on the right side. So you can form the bottom of that concrete shelf for that brick at the lower area, but we just used the dirt to retain that shelf. And then as it dried out a little bit, I actually used a square point shovel and cut it to exactly 8.5 inches on that lower shelf. You can see the rebar sticking out underneath, tying in the brick bed to the slab, which is always good. And then as this dried up, I came back through here with a square point and cut it off and shaped it up real nice. Here's a 4-foot wide wood bowl float, which works really good on this pea gravel. We use shovels usually to level, spread the concrete behind the screed, especially with pea gravel. The come-alongs have a tendency to get buried or sink. It's hard to hold them on grade. So that's why you'll see us using shovels with pea gravel. Much easier to work with pea gravel than a come-along. We will be cutting a couple control joints in this while the concrete's still wet. We're just going to do a 3/4 deep, 1/2 inch radius joiner. When we do the rock salt, it's just rock salt that you would typically use for water softening. And that's what we're going to be using here to give us the finish. We're going to broadcast that. And then I have a roller similar to a linoleum roller, a little bit wider and a little bit lighter, that will roll over the salt after we broadcast to push it into the concrete. You'll get to see that as we get to the end, and then the final view of this with the brick and salt finish.
The glasses today.
There's a Fresno going on.
Like a chameleon.
Here's a joint cutter. This is about 6 foot long joint cutter, which are really nice because it gives you a good straight line. And then if you let that set a little bit before you run the walking joiner, it'll stay right in that groove and stay pretty straight. You don't want to get on it too early with your walking joiner after you use the long cutter, otherwise you'll move that around and then you have to use a straight edge out there by hand to get it back and get it straight, which we end up having to do here anyway. Here's the straight edge, as you can see, because it just didn't stay straight. Sometimes you get lucky and you don't have to break out a straight edge, but sometimes no matter how hard you try, you're going to have to get that straight edge out. So we moved the joint over center of entryway. I would have preferred it off the edge of brick, but it would have been off center. All right, here's what we have down here. This is a rock salt finish. It's used for water softeners, and we're matching this finish right here. You can see there's a lot of holes close together with small rock. So that's what we did here. Small rock, a lot of it. Rolled it in with, it's similar to a linoleum roller, but it's a little bit wider, a little bit lighter. But a linoleum roller will work in a pinch, although they make a specific roller for this. You gotta put brick, white flash brick around the perimeter. Then we're gonna rinse the salt, dissolve, leaving all these holes, just like this stuff here. We missed the broadcasting of the salt. because I was scrambling. We did a double pour over here, and I was scrambling with the camera back and forth between the drive and this. And the salt went on here while I was recording the stamping project. So this is the next day, and we just swept off a majority of the salt. I didn't want to get it wet, because a lot of times you could just start washing it down and let the salt dissolve. But I didn't want to go that route this time, because I do want to set some brick today. I didn't want to make a mud hole here. So we swept it up, and then we just started mixing mud. This is just a typical bag mix mortar. We just mix it up, and we just add water, mix it. We use that for the bed. You can see how we cut that bed that the bricks are sitting on, how straight it is down there without an outside form. And that's just measuring and cutting with the square point shovel while it was still fresh. We probably went about 1 inch, maybe a little less, of a mortar bed on top of that concrete. And I'm trying to look at these bricks as I set them to try to put as least amount of white up as possible, because each side of the bricks have a different degree of white on them. But in either case, the white can be stripped off pretty easily with a good scrub brush and a little muriatic acid. Basically, on the spread for the distance of these mortar joints, I'm just using the tip of my fingers. And that's kind of my guide in setting these. So the way I set these bricks is I have my 2 foot level, and that's not really for leveling the brick. It's really just for kind of just double checking it. It's really what I'm doing is I'm using the 2x4 just to slap the bricks down flat with the concrete and maintain that same slope of the concrete. So that one, yeah. Okay, that goes there. We got that downspout moved over just enough to not be. We threw 245s on that bottom of that downspout, and that moved it over just enough to get our band in here without embedding that drain pipe. Once we get them all set like this, then we're going to come back. Here's Francisco with the grout bag, and you can tell he's did this more than once. Maybe it was when he was decorating cakes, I'm not sure, but you can see that he's used these bags a few times. Here's the cleaning process of the brick. Once the mortar gets hard enough, then you can sponge off the excess residues off of your brick and smooth out your mortar lines. And there's actually an art to cleaning brick too. I mean, it's not just rub it around and hope it's good. You actually have to keep rinsing that sponge, using both sides of the sponge, because a lot of times you can't see the residue while it's wet, but the next day you can see a lot of it once it dries out. So if you don't do your cleaning properly, then the next day you're going to do some acid washing, most likely. Also on the edge here, I did a 1/2 inch radius. I actually edged the grout of the brick. You can kind of see it there on the new brick. We have a 1/2 inch radius rolling up and over the brick. And the nice thing about doing that is if there is any movement on the brick between the concrete, you won't see it because it'll be within that joint. Without the joint, you'll be cracked over the top of that radius of the edge, and then it'll chip off. But anyway, thank you for watching this video. Make sure you stay tuned for the next one because it's a real beauty as well. Also, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.